back. So today in our learning community, the first question is, are visual supports and schedules important for all children in your classroom or only students with intensive exceptional needs? Anyone get started? Get us started.
I think it's important for all students. And I think I can even say from personal experience, I myself find myself sometimes drifting. So I think it's a good source to be able to refer back to and kind of like get back into what you're supposed to be focusing on.
Yeah, and I know like you hinted earlier when before how you were talking about like your scheduling and with your what is it, kindergartners? I always forget what
The kindergarten.
yeah. I feel like that can even be used at any level. Putting like schedules and visuals up for them so they can see that and they're able to visualize and like know what time things are gonna happen. And also you avoid questions on what time are we doing this or all of that.
Well, right now we follow a schedule too, and I do notice that the kids are constantly like, what time is it? And then they refer back to the board. It's not complete, it doesn't have like pictures, it's all writing, but they know, oh, it's almost lunchtime, right after lunch. Like I have this little girl that's always telling me, we have lunch and then writing and then specials and then I get to go home. Like it's kind of like like steps that she's like, okay, I just have to get through this and then I can go home.
Literally me.
So I think I agree with both of you that visual schedules and supports, they're important for all children. In my classroom specifically in second grade, we do start learning about that abstract concept of time. In that video, making a daily schedule, they do let us know that, again, that is an abstract concept that students are still learning, and to kind of help guide them through that, providing more of a visual representation of each item throughout the day provides that structure. And there isn't any constant wonder, because as I mentioned in our previous conversations, it's always, what time is it? What are we doing next? And I'm like, you guys can't quite, not yet, tell time. So please don't ask me if it is such and such time, because our clock don't even work on the wall. It is what it is. But rather than have to respond that way by providing those visual schedules, it's a reliable source for them. And I also know that that video described student behavior is better managed. We don't run into that questioning, as also that sigh, because they can manage their own time by having those things.
In
Yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
You're good.
In my placement that I was talking about before we started recording from last fall, in the autism support classroom, like every student had their own like personalized type visual schedule, as I was saying. So like some students had like a big Velcro, like, well, not big, but like a Velcro sheet they would take with them to like each table or station. And they would some of them would just have 3 spots on it, and it would just be like so for this task, it's this, then this, then this. And they would get to like remove the stuff. And then for kids that were slightly more advanced and like able to handle like the full day, it would be like the full day on a Velcro sheet. And then they would remove that like one as it kept going. And then the more abstract thinkers, like they would start taking out the pictures and like the clip art and all that. And it would just become like the schedule that you would see on the classroom in like a middle school classroom. And they would just cross off each like subject as it happened, lunch, specials, all that stuff. So it was still visual for them. But then also up on the board, the teacher had the schedule and there was a little magnetic arrow that like she would move for each activity. And like it got to the point where like near the end of the semester, the kids were like so excited if she forgot to move the arrow, they'd be like, no, Mrs. Foley, you forgot to move the arrow. Can I move it? And like they would be so excited to have like that visual thing. Like it would help them so much.
Yeah, I agree with you guys that the schedule would be beneficial for all students. But from my experience last year was that I had to create a schedule. We had a lady that came in from Phoenix, known as the autism whisperer or something like that. But she taught us how to create schedules. And I assist a student like with autism. So the way I created his visual schedule was like per the day. So like when he goes his OT or his speech, I would have actual pictures of his OT person, his speech person, and he would pull those off. And that's how he would go by his day. And this was also just to track his behavior because he had a lot of behavior issues. So like when he comes into school, he knows what's going to happen. And as he's done, he pulls it off and he puts it in the finish bin. So by the end of the day, that tells him that, okay, it's almost time to go home. So the visual schedule worked for him, but now where I'm at in the kindergarten, that's something that I think would work for them because I have kids who, like Edith said, that when they go to specials, they know right after that they go home. So a visual schedule would really work.
I know that.
Oh, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. I know that I always like kind of ask a question related, but I have a student that's autistic now in the classroom, and he knows everything that's going on, but he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. I'm wondering, was that the case with any of you guys? And do you guys feel that giving them that visual schedule helped them participate more?
Can I give a suggestion that I was actually just going to mention? We used, and you guys might have used it too in your placements, and maybe I'm not thinking about it as a schedule in particular, but it is sort of a schedule first, then boards. So you get as similar to the schedule icons, but it literally has the two, like Kelly might have said, you go to that table and you have 3 icons. Well, even just the 2. So it says first work, then your whatever your reward is. So like you said, Sam, in kinder, wherever your placement is, you have a student with autism, they don't understand why they're doing this work. To them, these grades make no sense. The progress they don't see, they're not quite comprehending that yet. And so for kinders, for those students with a low attention, if we're giving them that immediate goal, like they do this, they get this, like that's that positive reinforcement. So maybe even something that kind of is a schedule, but not quite day by day, it's used during each task, might be helpful for them to get something after immediate.
I find it a little difficult to do that only because I'm the student in the classroom, the student teacher, and she moves so fast through stuff. Like they literally have a schedule throughout the day, and it's like, okay, put your boards away, take out your notebook, we're doing this now. So I feel like I wouldn't have time to be able to reward him. That's terrible, but I really do feel that way.
I think I have. Go ahead, Sam. Go ahead. Okay, I have one kid now that's in kinder who the parent did come forth to us and say that he was diagnosed with autism, but yet has not put it through the system of the school. So he doesn't have the support that he needs. And we created a schedule for him last week that he goes off of now. And, that's something that works for him because he's the only student like that we have in the building. And he needs a lot of like support, a lot of extended time. And that's, like I said, I'm all for the visual schedule. I was just going to ask Edith like a follow-up. Does he like have a para or like?
No, he gets pulled for I think like 30 minutes with a special ed teacher. But other than that, he's in the classroom unassisted all day.
Okay.
Like I sit down with him now because I'm there, but otherwise he's really just sitting there. And when I'm telling you that he does know what's going on, because when I sit with him and I ask him questions, he'll know how to answer them or kind of answer them. But if I didn't like probe him or prep him for the answers, he would not take out his whiteboard. He would not write anything down.
Yeah. You know why the reason he doesn't have one? Because it sounds like he could benefit a lot from them. And I obviously know there's like a huge like lack rate, or like, I guess lack's not the word, but like there's a shortage of like people that want to work and like be paras and stuff. So I know that could be a reason, but is it like stated that he needs one, or?
No, well, I haven't looked at his any of his IEP stuff. The teacher just told me that he was autistic, and he's
you can ask, like, you should be able to, like, I know my last teacher provided me copies of any of the IEPs that I requested to see, because you can make, like you said, if it's a whiteboard task, for instance, like, and it's keeping him on task, you can use those icons to say, like, okay, when you get your whiteboard out, every time a teacher says get whiteboard out, or if you're here you need to take your icon and move it from here to here. So I know that you did that task. Like, if it's used as that, and if it's something like you're using whiteboards a lot, or if you need to get a pencil, like, we would tape this, anything that they were doing routinely. Like, I had a student that frequently used the bathrooms, and it was only this one student. So for him, he would get check marks. So we taped it right on his desk, and anytime he went to the restroom, he put his check mark on his desk. So, I mean, you can definitely create your own, definitely talk to your mentor, but you should get that IEP, because they can be following through with whatever his least restrictive environment is too.
Yep. That's what I was thinking too. And I don't know if you mentioned behaviors, but like what I was going to mention earlier, like having those schedules for the kids or the students, like also helps with behavior management, like, and classroom management. In the beginning, like my first 2 weeks, I like set my expectations of like my schedule and like what we're gonna do. In one of my classes, it's an English class, but there were a lot on computers because they do a program. And so like most of them knew how to do it, but I didn't really set expectations for new students. And I, like a week later, found that some of them were just sitting there and like off task and doing little things, and I'm like, why aren't you on like systems? Like, why aren't we doing it? I'm like, this is our time, and they didn't know like what to do. And I'm like, okay, I need to go back, give them a schedule, like 20 minutes you're doing this, the next 20 minutes you're doing this, 5 minutes is when we pack up, we ask questions, you turn in everything. So I think I know it like helps with behaviors too. I don't know if you're struggling with that in the classroom, but I know like the scheduling and giving them a schedule, even in sometimes it doesn't even have to be written, which I feel like written schedules and like visuals is more important. But even sitting down in the beginning of class, like I do bell work and I tell them, okay, this is what we're hitting on. This is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to let you work individually, whatever. Just also, I feel like in high school, I use less visuals just because they're high schoolers, but I can tell them, but I know it like refrains from all these extra behaviors in my class.
There's no behavior issues, but you did give me an idea. You did give me an idea of maybe we can do, instead of like an end of the day self-assessment, like, did I take out the whiteboard? Gold star. When I was asked, did I take out my paper? When I was asked, gold star. So okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and if he maybe got all those stars, like there's your reward right there. Like they got all of those things, or he at least got X amount of things, and then he gets his.
Or like, at least just to make him a little bit more aware of the activities that are going on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Bribe with a little piece of candy never hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm saying, I teach high school, and I was struggling like those weeks with them getting on task and like starting routine and stuff. And one day I just like bought some what are they, airheads, and the kids that came in got their stuff and started on bell work. I was like, thank you for doing bell work. And all of them were just like looking around. They're like, oh shoot, she's giving out candy, I'm gonna start. But it does have like those little things, and especially for him, like if he doesn't have that support, I feel like you can be that support. At least right now you're in that class, and you have that support.
Can I ask, does your mentor teacher give them a sense of urgency? So you need to have, like, they give a explicit list, like number 1, you need to have your whiteboard out. Number 2, you need to have your your marker. Number 3, you need to be listening like this or whatever their cue is. In 5, and then the kids start. Does she give a sense of urgency to those kids and list their expectations explicitly?
There's a couple of kids in there with behavior issues. So it's kind of hard for her to manage the classroom. She has some issues with classroom management. So much so that I think like the 3rd day that I was there, I yelled at the class because they were not listening to her. So I had to use my mean voice and tell them to like all eyes on her, settle down, you know, like silence. After that, she started like, now what she's been doing is she makes them go to the carpet and practice like 3 times silently to go to your desk. And then she'll make them go to the carpet again. Like if she sees that they're starting to get a little rowdy, that's what she's been doing, like repetitiveness of the action. But yeah, and she's really soft spoken. So I think that kind of adds to the behavior thing.
Yeah, like, yeah, you had to have that explicitness and that sense of urgency, because if you just say, take this out, well, when do you want me to take it out? And if we do count down, those kids are like, they're moving, they're on it, they don't want to be last, like they are sitting, they are waiting for table points, whatever it is. But that's hard, like having behaviors, I'm sure.
And I don't want to take up too much time. Do we have do you guys, for my lesson that I did this week, I was having them play with play coins. So when I started my lesson, I'm like, I don't want to lose control of this class because I'm recording this. So I told them each table is going to get 2 warnings. If you guys meet those 2 warnings, I'm taking the coins away. They were so good through the whole lesson. I'm like, oh my God, thank goodness. Because I was so worried that they were going to be rowdy, but I think it has to be stated at the beginning of the lesson and strictly.
Yes.
Always set your expectations.
Do we want to move on to the next question? We have some time.
Yeah. The next question is, how will you use the SET, UDL, and TPAC in your future classroom? When we were going over like TPAC, that's like the one my group was assigned. I feel like it was like a lot of like knowledge that or things you already do in class, like without even knowing, like, oh, TPAC, you know. I don't know if that's like the same for all of you guys, but I feel like that's just something you already do unintentionally, I guess, if that makes sense.
I can't access the TPAC website. Like when I click on the link, it takes me to something and then it says it uses an unsupported protocol and it's not secure.
I put it in the chat. I don't know if you want to check it. If not, I could probably share my screen.
It does show that it's not secure on my side too, but I don't know if you have to have some specific things on.
Yeah, like it just, when I open the one in the chat, it also just like, it just comes up like Greg with like a frowny face and it's like, it uses an unsupported protocol and I can't, there's nothing else.
Yeah, well, the TPAC is just that technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. But it's like very in depth, like you said, Leslie, but we have a greater understanding as we are utilizing it. I focused myself more on the SET model. To me, it broke it a little bit more simplified if I'm going to be evaluating like the student for potential assistive technology need. And going through like the slideshow, I might use it. Like in my school, we do something called like a GITE referral, which is, I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's where the general education provides an intervention team. So that's what it is, general education intervention team. So during that process, we determine the student's strengths and needs, both all academically, socially, physically, etc. So this framework, the SET framework, covers the student, environment, tasks, and tools related to that area. the guides that were provided assist those technologies that they might need. And then of course we go into like the indicators related to the no tech, low tech, high tech that are beneficial. So for me, like I said, that set model kind of correlates to the intervention system that my school might have in place, where I can easily translate that.
Sorry, I'm trying to copy and
I was gonna say, Leslie, why are you making that face?
sorry, I'm trying to copy and paste this, but it won't let me for Kelly.
I do kind of agree. I can't remember who said that. I think Leslie said that, or I'm not sure, that a lot of the stuff on there was stuff that you kind of just almost like common sense. The only thing that I read that I was like, I haven't really thought of it, and probably because I've never had to deal with it, is under the UDL for the action and expression. It talked about how we should be able to provide materials that have a seamless interface with common assistive technologies, including individuals with impairments in movement. I'm like, and so they should be able to navigate whatever the lesson is with their limitations. I'm like, I never even thought of that. But again, I haven't been really exposed to it either.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Leslie.
Sorry, I posted it. Sorry, on the Google Doc. I'm like struggling with this. I know Emma, you briefly discussed like set, and I was like still kind of confused on that. Like even when they talked about it in the group, I just lost the paper where it was. I don't know if like somebody can like kind of not summarize it, but like how would you include it in the classroom?
So this is like a framework. So the set models, you start with the student. So what does the student need to do? The student's special needs, current abilities, like that's the first piece. The next piece is that environment. So what materials are available in the environment? What is the environment like? What supports are available during that time? And the environment piece is important because sometimes in the classroom it might be one way, but in like PE it's another way. So they might need something there that they don't. So you have to like be specific there. And then you go on to the tasks. So that's like what everybody is doing and like that activity, because you need to know what they're doing so you can then provide that technology to help them with that activity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're just specific of what they're needing to do. And then last is the tools. So what no tech, it says what no tech, low tech, and high should be considered, or what you're trying to use for this student. And what strategies maybe have you tried with the student. So this is that intervention piece. Like from what I understand, that's what I related to it, is where you're building like that referral to get them that assistive technology. That's how I understood it.
I mean, it makes sense, yeah. Because I feel like there's like processes in each district and like schools and stuff.
Yeah, I saw it as sort of like kind of like a guideline of procedures to follow, like within your district, like find out what is important with the student and like what is the environment specifically for your school and district and like so on. Like I saw it kind of as like a little like checklist.
That makes more sense to my brain. I don't know, maybe it's because it's late, but
and in the what is it, the pre-class readings, activity readings, there's a oh my gosh, where'd it go? A slideshow, and you probably review like went over it, but there's like that's where it really goes through that process. And at the end there's like all of their like data sheets and things to like record all of your the process like of assisting the student with those technology and obtaining those things. So that's
Yeah.
what I learned mostly about the set model was there. So I would go through that one for sure.
Yeah, I do remember seeing those, and I feel like it's like, so it's not new, but it's new to me because I feel like I don't know who mentioned it in class, but like the OTs are like at my school are the ones that like do that, and like obviously yeah they come in and help us and teach us, but they're the ones that like actually do the process and like go on with it all. So I feel like from a SPED teacher, like it's less common, at least in my district. I don't know if that's like the case for you guys, but I think it's less common for me to deal with all of that. Even when I was a parent, like our OTs and our PTs would always do all that.
I feel like it could be valuable, maybe like if you sense OT could like be useful for an intervention for a student, like maybe use it that way, or like on like a very like general scale. I feel like it could just be like a great way to differentiate as well. But yeah, I feel like OT usually handles like the main assessment part of it.
Yes, for sure.
But it could even be outside of SPED too. Like even in gen ed, if you got kinders that are struggling to write, that assistive technology might be that pencil gripper, it might be something else. So I agree with you, like in the SPED realm, our kids are generally already taken care of as far as their assistive technologies. Whereas like in the gen ed side, like I'm learning that as that teacher, if it hasn't been done by a previous teacher, it's my responsibility. So like I need to know, like we need to know how to do these types of interventions. But I'm sorry, Sam, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to go ahead and add in one thing that I would use into the classroom would be from the UDL, provide multiple means of representation. You know, the one thing that would be the language and symbols, you know, clarifying vocabulary and symbols, you know, just using the icons to help introduce different symbols to vocabulary. Because I know from my experience that the student I was assisting last year, like the basic sight words that they added symbols on top of. So they would have like he would have like a little picture of something that he would recognize it by. So that's how they were able to read off of it. You know, that's something that it will take some time to get students to get used to it. But in the end, you know, that's something that I think I would use. Also the supporting of decoding of the text. A lot of decoding to help. That's one of the UDLs that I would implement.
So that would be like the last question. The last question is to share an article, video, or technology that supports these visual schedules. Does anybody like have anything that comes to mind or like they've seen in the classroom?
I'm gonna be honest, I just shared a technology, like I had this saved, like I knew I wanted to share it so bad that I didn't even read the remaining part, which says it needs to be more pertaining like visual schedules, but it is used for communication purposes. So for those that haven't seen eye gaze, are you guys okay if I share that with you now?
Yeah, do it.
All right, I'm gonna share the screen. So this is the website this is called Eye Gaze, like it's a specific like brand, but you can kind of see that it's like a little camera that's attached and it goes into details about how this is Eye Gaze Edge works. So you'll notice that the camera is at an angle on the computer and then the user gazes at that screen. they have to at least, it says less than 15 seconds to calibrate that, to set it up. It doesn't quite say the time. I know usually it's about like 15 seconds or so that you have to like be looking at.
Oh,
at it.
15 seconds.
Is it 15 seconds approximately?
It's right there on that paragraph to the left. Less than 50 seconds, right?
So that's calibration. This actually says typically about half a second to activate a key, which is like extremely fast. So you see the typing here. This person is typing, utilizing that gaze. That must be the calibration piece here, calibrating their eyes. But I really thought it was cool because up here it mentions like nothing's attached to the person. They're simply looking at the screen. And I think that technology is amazing. I didn't look more into like iPads that this might be able to be attached to, like as far as like at school, but definitely like at home, like we're, you know, digital learning for a long time. Something like this, as I had mentioned previous conversation, like giving to students with exceptional needs that require a better mode of communication or to utilize is pretty awesome, or orthopedic impairments, etc. So if you haven't seen it, eye gaze, pretty cool.
Amazing. And if it's used constantly, it can do good for students, a lot of good.
And this is obviously more intense, but I know that there are like the icon versions too that are a little bit less good.
On the iPad. Thank you for sharing that.
I know we all needed to see that. I was excited. I was excited when I learned about that technology last semester, so couldn't let it go.
Yeah. If anybody doesn't have anything else, the timer did go off. So if you wanna. Perfect.
I'm good. Have a good night, guys.